Mexico. Joining me now is Washington Post immigration reporter Nick Miroff. You've covered this so many times, Nick, and I just want to know if you were surprised by the ruling today, if it, shocked you with how many conservatives were on board.
I mean, not really, because in the end, this is sort of comes down to executive discretion, and what the court, noted was that if a lower court is telling the administration that it has to continue a policy, that it can't change a policy that involves negotiations with a foreign government, in this case Mexico, then it's really kind of encroaching on the executive branch's ability to conduct foreign relations. And so that was one of the points that the majority made, and essentially now saying that the administration not only has the discretion to end the policy, but has the discretion to decide whether or not to detain migrants or to put them in some other disposition, release them into the United States, send them back to Mexico, really just kind of affirming executive supremacy over immigration matters.
Okay, so for our viewers, though, Nick, what changes now if someone who wants to seek asylum in the United States, how is that adjudicated now? What process is different?
Well, the truth is that this isn't all that significant because since the return of Remain in Mexico under this court order about 6 months ago, the number of people who are being placed in the program and returned to Mexico is pretty small. Keep in mind that in May, for example, the most recent month for which we have CBP enforcement data, U.S. Customs and Border Protection took more than 239,000 people into custody. Okay, and so of that 239,000, only about 1,400 were returned to Mexico under the Remain in Mexico program. Now compare that to the more than 100,000 who were expelled from the United States under the Title 42 Public Health Authority that's been in place since the beginning of the pandemic. So again, that's like 70 times as many people are placed in Title 42 as they are in the Remain in Mexico program. So the Title 42 health law, in many ways, continues to be one of the biggest limitations to seeking asylum in the United States. But that Title 42 health law is only applied by the Biden administration in about 40% of all apprehensions. So about 60% of migrants who are showing up at the border, including many who are seeking asylum, are being, in many cases, released into the United States with a court date and allowed to pursue humanitarian claims. So in sum, none of this is as cut and dry as some of the speakers that you've played are making it out to be.
Okay, yeah, and of course, Title 42, that's working its way still through the courts. I just want to read out a statement Texas Governor Greg Abbott put out today in the wake of this ruling. He says the decision upholding DHS's termination of the Remain in Mexico policy will only embolden the Biden administration's open border policies. More than 50 people recently died in a trailer, people who were allowed to cross our border illegally because of President Biden's policies. Abbott there connecting the tragedy we saw in San Antonio just on Monday to this ruling today. Your thoughts?
Yeah, again, I just think that this MPP, that as it was, returned by the Biden administration, never became a significant factor the way it was during the Trump phase of the program, when it was implemented far more aggressively, and a much greater share of asylum seekers were being returned to Mexico. Again, if you go to the border, as I have been, in recent months, and you talk to people, they've never heard of this program. And we took a look at it in the El Paso area back in February. And really what the Biden administration was doing was using it almost exclusively for groups that couldn't be expelled under Title 42, primarily Nicaraguans, some Cubans. They were placing them in this new version of MPP, and they were giving them access to the asylum system probably in a way that they wouldn't have had ordinarily. So again, what Abbott is saying, like the idea that this is just going to become some new incentive, I think is not based in reality. And This is not on the radar of migrants who are making this journey. They are coming for many other reasons, primarily because of the tight U.S. labor market, the demand for jobs here, the poverty and violence in their home countries, and the perception that this is a good window of opportunity, a good time to try to make this trip.
All right. Well, Nick Miroff with the Washington Post, we always appreciate your insight into these immigration matters, and we'll talk to you again.
Thank you. Have a good night.